Welcome back to the Origin series. We have already sent one team to the grand final, which will be happening tomorrow. We're now going to change our focus over to Group B. We got our lower bracket final between Trovo Nova and Mortal Shot. Now, TJ, I know you're excited about Trovo Nova purely because of the names that exist on this roster.
Yeah, this is very exciting to me because I knew these players for 2 years. They were the best team in mobile esports, at least in Europe, as they dominated the scene of a previous mobile game I covered. Particularly Vex, I'm going to put a lot of hype behind him, because Vex is like the mechanical god that everyone knows in the European mobile scene. But I have to say, I've kind of been waiting for Vex to be able to deliver that form here in Wild Rift. That's one of the big things that I think hangs over the head of a lot of these players on Trovo Nova who did play on Nova Esports in previous titles. They haven't hit the same form that Nova Esports roster was synonymous with. And I keep wondering, because I watched this team kind of so regularly struggle during the regular season and then step up in playoffs to win everything. I keep wondering, as we get closer and closer to the end of the Origin series, as they step up into the lower bracket final, trying to qualify for the grand final, is this where it finally turns back on? Do they get that kind of stage buff?
Well, I mean, hopefully they do. We're going to need to take a better look at what those teams are producing. I would love that you called out Vex, by the way, because even I remember Vex because we covered the same mobile MOBA at a certain point in time. And I know they made a name for themselves through that way. Yuko, this series, what are your expectations for it?
All right, so before we started the day, I did say I'm really looking forward to this game. So I would like to highlight on something that TJ said. Trovo Nova, they're still to get their flavor or their proper composition, I don't know, a mark in this meta. So really hoping that maybe they can get that oomph in their draft. Could be a different champion, could be a certain rotation. So hit us with your best shot.
All right, well, it looks like we're getting ready for picks and bans. They'll be up soon. But I got one last thing we'll be having here. What are the predictions for the series? What do you two think is going to happen here? I know you got a lot of love for Trovo Nova, TJ. But who do you think is actually going to walk away with it?
So I was looking at the Trovo Nova games, and just because I spent so long with this team, not only covering them, but also like interviewing them and getting to hang out with them at LANs, I was very surprised by the way that they're playing in the current meta, because it feels around Poseidon, who has always been good for this team, but has always been a stable control mage player more than anything else. So seeing him be the most proactive player on the map is really interesting to me in a way that doesn't entirely make me feel comfortable. It's interesting in the way that esports casters use the word interesting when they mean I don't really like that. So, I don't know, despite that, I still can't bring myself to side against Trovo Nova, but I'd like to file some reservations.
Okay, reservations noted. I'll put that on your evidence report and we'll come to review your case after the series ends. But we're into draft, as you can see. We've already had all the bans come in. Ziggs doesn't seem surprising. Fiora and as well as the Garen aren't surprising to me. Ahri ban. Is the Ahri worth it, Yuko?
Honestly, yes. TJ said that there is player that just focuses and just excels beautifully with this control mages. Right off the bat, I think of Ahri. But now we can see that Trovo Nova, they deadlock in that Kai'Sa. They want to immediately have that late game assurance while still being a threat towards the mid game. Camille gonna be the first champion beside of MS, but Camille not having the best win rate so far. But TJ, you were about to say something?
I was just going to hype up how much I love Kai'Sa. She is so powerful in the meta right now. I think she is the most important AD carry. You can definitely make an argument for Xayah with certain backup. You can definitely make an argument for Tristana in the late game. But Kai'Sa regularly is the most dominant AD carry on the Rift because of her power spike in the early mid game. So I think any team that isn't prioritizing the Kai'Sa is making a huge mistake.
You know what? You mentioned Kaisa, and one of the most beautiful pairings we can get at the Dragon Lane, aside from the Sayarakan because they're lovebirds, is this Kaisa and Braum. I highlighted this earlier. Concussive blows, if you connected with Caitlyn Rain, almost an instant stun and can just give so much space to your team. And Turbo Nova also picked up a Gragas, so you already have a hard engage, a lot of damage to dish out. Now you have a disengage, or maybe even someone that can just be that very tanky champion at the front lines.
And they get Gragas as well. This is a tour de force of meta as far as Trovo Nova are concerned. So now I'm, flipping the script and I'm looking at what's being brought out on the opposite side. And it's full focus through this bottom lane. You're going Lulu Vayne, you're counting on the fact that this bot lane is going to be able to scale up, and then you're going to be able to support that bot lane with kind of this secondary support that Galio provides from the mid lane. This is all about Vayne, and Trovo Nova have multiple threats. So far, I'm really liking the Trovo Nova draft.
Same here. But if you're gonna look at MS right now, you see a Lulu. So I immediately thought that Wild Growth is gonna be committed to Camille or to Galio. Galio most likely just to get an extra knockup. But I'm actually a lot more worried because if you're gonna imagine the amount of burst and the amount of pickoff that Trovo Nova has in this lineup, see, you have a Twisted Fate. He can even chase you with Destiny. Now you have Lee Sin that can just jump in, isolate you, isolate Vayne. That's going to be the most obvious target, and then his team can just finish off the kill. But now you have a last pick Olaf. You have the Ragnarok, you have the Undertow, you just have that scary bouncer alongside Galio at the front line that will most likely help Camille here.
Right, composition is locked in. We're going to throw to the casters to get into game number 1 of our second series of the night.
Thank you very much, guys, on the desk. Ed Sheeran and the gang giving us all the good news ahead of this game. For this fight, I know you like that one. Coming into this one, this is, of course, for a spot tomorrow in the grand final. That rematch coming up against UOL. That's the big prize they're all shooting for today at Scoundrel.
That was a low blow to Trid, mate. That was a low blow. No, I'm excited. I think this is going to be an interesting matchup. I do genuinely believe, though, Nova come in as a clear favourite. I want to give as much respect as I can, but I do think Nova come in as a clear favourite. I think that rematch in the finals is really the ultimate matchup in Group here, Desi.
It absolutely is. I mean, looking at it with how the length of the game's played out as well, the best of 3. Speaking of which, the early level 1 already kicking off. And come on, look, these are the things that you come to expect in games like this at Scoundrel. The early invades, the catching out. Beautiful start onto GD there, who I think already, knowing that it's going to get invaded here, will be already at a bit of a setback.
Yeah, absolutely, and especially because he's taken the Olaf away from Vex. I think that felt personal, Vex is an incredibly experienced Olaf player. I'd say it's his best champion in the game. But look, when you're playing up against a Braum, you kind of have to expect the level 1 cheese. Like, you can take a look at it again. Like, this is just classic Braum. And also the flash when you got the Sonic Wave on top of you. That was like breakfast served up on a plate for Trovo Nova. An easy pickup.
Always the problem against the Lee Sin as well. We speak about the early aggression, but of course, mobility at level 1. The fact that you've got the Braum for the assist as well. Potentially the stun card from the Twisted Fate. I look at that comp and I just think, I want nothing to do with this at level 1. I'm staying as far away as possible and keeping myself safe. As mentioned already, that does give a small advantage over to Trovo Nova. Not enough that it's going to snowball things out of scale already this early into the game. But at this point, I think you'll take any advantage.
I mean, if you can 3-buff an Olaf, that's like a pretty good start, especially denying the red buff away from Olaf. It kind of neuters a lot of his early gank potential and a lot of his early dueling as well, especially around these river scuttlers. But it looks like they're actually going to go and take him on. They know that he's on blue side jungle, so they know that they can fight him at this blue side river. They're going up against a Vayne. He has to just give it up. This is really intelligent play, I think, from Trovo Nova.
I think he got that one away as well. Now to find himself chased down more. Of course, doesn't have the flash anymore. This could be the easiest cleanup in their life. Man, that's a Cloud9 through and through, isn't it? Dying for the scuttle? Yeah.
I mean, he didn't even get it. That's the worst part. Like, Vex just came in and smited it away. But honestly, it just shows you how switched on they are. I mean, look, I'm praising this like it was the best play ever since Faker, but realistically, it was just good map play from Trovo Nova. Like they knew that he would have to do a full blue side clear into Scuttle if he wanted to keep himself relevant in this game. And Vex was like, nope, not going to have it. You've got a bot lane Vayne who's going to be giga useless until about 15 minutes into the game. So we're going to go straight for that. Come fight us if you like. We know that we're going to win.
This is one of those horrible, like, Ralph Wiggum, stop, he's already dead. The guy's already been 3-buffed. He's already been set back. You're taking the scuttle away from him, and you're killing him twice early. It just shows great focus, I think, from the team to put strong attention into what's going on in the jungle. Now here, the Vayne you spoke about being giga useless, I was going to comment and say, surely Poseidon here in the mid lane, now that he's got the level 5, wants to start looking for those ganks into the side lane, set these lanes further back, because now you've got the Olaf behind, you've got the Vayne going behind, they're trying to get onto the Lulu. Gold card lands. He's absolutely dead here. They are burying this team early game, Scoundrel.
I mean, it feels... Oh my goodness, they're actually going to get a kill onto Vex. I mean, nonetheless, you've given up a huge amount of pressure in the bot lane. This may actually just be bot lane tier 1, although I would say that bot lane will have increased resistances right now. We are pre-4 minutes, so it might be difficult to flat out take the turret at this stage in the game. But regardless, you were correct. Abuse the Vayne in the early game. Get her, further and further behind. Make it more difficult for her to get to that 3/4 item power spike that she really comes online in Wild Rift. And as you said, Poseidon on the Twisted Fate, great single target CC. This was just after they killed the Vayne. Twisted Fate is a great answer into Vayne as well, because especially in the late game when she pops her ult and relies on that invisibility to do her kiting, she's going to remain visible, and you have that single target lockdown with the gold card to make it more difficult for the Vayne to play these team fights. So I think the Poseidon Twisted Fate was the perfect answer into the Vayne for pretty much every stage of the game.
I remember Vex back in the alternative mobile MOBA that used to get played quite a bit by some of these players, and he was always the very aggressive jungler, to the stage that sometimes it did come back to bite him, and maybe that's part of what happened or transpired there in the mid lane. Did get brought down, as you saw a second ago, but I don't think you're crying too much over that when you know you've got this 3k gold lead. I was going to say top lane is turning into an absolute island. That island should soon start to depart and head over towards the mainland as the Drake is on the table. But I think for Trovo Nova, there's very little contest to come through here. They know exactly what happens if they get too close to this one.
I mean, I think you have to make that decision as a team, right? Like, you've got a Vayne, you know that your first Drake team fight is going to be bad. I think the best play for Mortal Shot was to go for that top lane tier 1 and attempt to utilize the pressure of the Camille. I'm hoping she's picked up at Sheen at this point in the game, but if the Camille's got the Sheen, you might have been able to combo together to go for that tier 1 on the top side, but they didn't have the correct setup with the waves. They didn't get the setup on the Drake either, and I think realistically they are too far behind to contest. But I'm actually quite glad they didn't contest, Des, because if they did, they would have just straight up lost.
I mean, look at this. The dive's coming all the way through. They've orchestrated it. They know what's going down here. And on the other side, not a clue. They've been absolutely clapped out here. You've got the Twisted Fate coming in from behind as well. This is 4 guys all standing around a turret here, daring and waiting for the minion wave to catch up. But with it not quite getting there, the Lulu backs away. But this will be the first tower at Scoundrel.
It's just classic. You put pressure on the weakest point on the map, and the weakest point on the map is the Vayne, and you're over and over again just going in and trying to make it as difficult for her as possible. I love the response though from Mortal Shot. This is the tier 1 in the mid being taken in response to that first tower. That tier 1 mid is important. Now this is an aggressive play onto the Brawl, but it might work out.
I mean, it might do here as well. The Ignite's down. Is going to fall to the Galio. The Olaf a little bit deep at this point. Q connected on by the Lee Sin. They will trade it back. So 1 for 1 there. Not going to be crying over spilt milk. You still get that second tower coming in after the first one fell in the bottom side. I agree with you for Mortal Shot. They are responding, but proactivity is in Trovo Nova's name right now.
Yeah, it's reactive responding. You're completely correct, Derry. Like, end of the day, like, I think it's the best case scenario. I mean, this is just perfect. I think there was a flash kick coming out from... No, it wasn't even a flash.
Couldn't
it was just straight up safeguard kick. So like that's the way that you generally get the basic Lee Sin kick combos out on this game. And again, you always have that backup provided by Poseidon behind the turret. Neutral objective control firmly in the hands of Trovo Nova, and they are now 4,000 gold in the lead. They can use that Rift Herald for multiple purposes. You can go for a strict tower take if you want to, especially for opening up that mid lane tier 1, or just use it to naturally create some priority in a lane when that next Drake is spawning in a few minutes' time. And especially because it is the Cloud Drake, and with Cloud and Infernal being the 2 highest win rate Drakes in the game, you imagine that Trovo Nova are going to want to put their attention on that.
Absolutely. I mean, I think it's more for that use case here, unless they get a great opportunity. The Gragas being isolated, finally some attention in the top side. Vex is in here, but can't do much to save his top laner. May even lose his life for it at the same time. Will walk away. Turns out the Olaf didn't want to go too deep for that one.
Honestly, Des, little bit of a fluff of the Gragas ultimate. Little bit of a fluff of the Gragas ultimate. You should be able... Oh, I mean, Poseidon? Hello?
Hello? I mean, hello? He's walking face first and face tanking and getting mauled down by 3 people. Are you all surprised by that outcome? Because I'm not.
Oh my god, high elo solo Q's gonna eat this alive, trust me.
I can already imagine the Discord notifications ringing through my inbox.
I know what's going to happen. I know what's going to happen. What was that? Yeah, that happened. I'm going to gloss over it. Actually, some life still in Mortal Shot here, especially on that top side of the map. A little bit like, do you have to do this to him? You really got to do this to him? Oh my gosh.
Clip it. Get it in the Discord and let Poseidon eat it all up. We know exactly how it's going to play out. But one thing I do want to raise real quick, Scoundrel. About 4 minutes ago, he said, okay, a nice early game 3K gold lead. Fantastic. That gold lead hasn't shifted in 3 minutes. It is still sat squarely at 3. So there is, like you say, life coming out of Mortal Shot. Is it enough that they can win the next straight fight with it spawning in 15 seconds? We're about to find out.
Yeah, the setup is a little delayed here because of all that shenanigans at the top side of the map. And whilst all that's happening, you have given a bit of free time over to Vayne. Like, you do have to be worried that is a ticking time bomb. But I like this from Trovo Nova. They're getting a good setup.
Oh, that's a real support for you. Flashes in the way of the Braum Q as well to make sure you eat the Winter's Bite. The Galio coming in off the top, but it's a 4 versus 3 with the Lulu off the field. No ult to commit towards her tanks. The Galio is just fodder at this point. The second kill coming out, and we had that question about the Dragon. Something tells me it's most definitely going to Trovo Nova.
Yeah, and it's a really important one to take, as we mentioned before. Like the combination of the Infernal and the Cloud Soul is really, I say Soul, they're basically like mini Souls because you get those buffs straight away. But the Cloud Drake does give you that movement speed bonus, which does allow for those quicker rotations across the map. And that is so important to Wild Rift because obviously, yeah, we do have a shove down on this mid lane tier 1. Oh my gosh, is Hydra just going in?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, the whole collective was. Grizzly Q was tanking most of it before he bailed off on the back of it. Didn't even have to use the flash to keep himself in or get himself out. Nice and easy for Trovo Nova. Now the Camille finally joining the party. She's been quiet in the top lane. So the Herald spawns in her face. Is going to force her back for a quick second. Here we go with once again a Grag Assault coming in, finding out onto 1. That's going to be the Vayne being melted yet again. Unable to get started in this game. And a second charge may be coming out. Nope, cancelled out by the Galio. Not the worst thing in the world, but now that 3K gold lead we spoke about has extended to 6.5K in the space of about 60 seconds at Scoundrel.
And you have the hidden gold of the Drakes. Those Drakes are worth money that you can't see. So really it's going to feel like a lot higher than that for Trovo Nova right now. I say Clamares, though, is having a bit of a... He's gone full AP Gragas. That's a mana culture. That's a mana culture right there. Full AP Gragas on the top side of the map. This was that engage. A little overstep from Vayne. Oh... Flash body slam, I think, from Clamares. I think he was just straight up dead there.
I think at that point, once the person connects, you just absolutely screwed off the back of it. And this is the thing, right? We saw it in the early game, cut off the supply line to the bot lane and shutting down the jungle. Second time around, you put all the focus into that bot side. Multiple dives coming in onto the Vayne, for example, unable to make much happen. A Galio's not going to carry the game for you. A Camille needs to find some awesome fights to really get ahead. That's how things are setting up. The ult from the Olaf, the Ragnarok, keeping him alive. As we see the blue team starting to coalesce here on the top side of the map, looking for this next outer tower, and that will complete the trio. They'll have all 3 of them, including that juicy plate gold.
Ooh, it's a bit of a damage that Hydra's going to have to be a little careful here. Just get backed up by Camille. I think when we haven't really had much time to talk about the compositions here, Derry. It feels like it's been action from the very get-go. But the desk did touch on it briefly. You know, for Mortal Shot, it is very much a Vayne-centered composition. Like the issue that I have with the Vayne in this context is though that when you were an Olaf, you're running a Camille. Like that's very much a proactive hit the go button style comp, right? And then you have Vayne. She's really better played in front to back. Like she's better played in peel composition. She's better played in front to back, where she just shreds through the front line in the late game. I just feel like she's a little out of place in this comp. And plus, you also have to take into account that Vayne's not strong right now in Wild Rift. She's often picked as a counter pick or like a compositional pick when it makes sense. A good example of it making sense is a Garen top, for instance, which Vayne does relatively well into throughout the game. But you're going into a heavy dive comp with a lot of single target lockdown. That's not a great place for a Vayne to be, ever.
Yeah,
so I just
the
feel
big
like
question I guess you've got on that, right? Yeah, is the Camille really going to be enough to be able to ult someone to keep them off you? Can the Lulu do enough to save you? Is a Galio ult really going to be that impactful when there's this much trying to get onto you and to, I don't know, disrupt the setup that you've got, the ult from the Gragas, the one that we're talking about there. All this being said, we're having a merry little chat, and in this case, Trovo Nova are doing a merry little Baron for themselves. No one able to stop this one, comfortably taken away, and they might be able to find themselves yet another catch here.
Yeah, it was an aggressive push. I mean, I think they're going to get away, though. You just saw the Ragnarok. I mean, there's flashes all over the shop right now.
There we go. The engage coming in from the Camille. She's right in the middle of the heart of this one as well. No damage being dealt on the other side. That Galio ult as useless as anything. They do manage to find one in return. It being thrown over to the Galio, and the dive under tower from Vex is going to neutralize that one back. It hasn't been as bloody for Mortal Shot as you might have hoped, but either way, with it onside, they'll make it a third. I was going to say the Baron's enough. They're just going to dive for this one. They have ignored towers all game long at Scoundrel, and they're saying, why stop now?
Exactly. I mean, they are just that far ahead now, Derry. We're pushing a 10k gold lead in favor of Trovo Nova. And off the back of that Baron, they should be able to deliver the killing blow to the majority of Mortal Shot's hopes in this game. We've seen plenty of Vaynes tried. Very few Vaynes have succeeded in the Origin series so far. It's such a fast-paced meta right now. It's kind of dominated by very early objective control and snowball potential. Vayne does not really suit that style of comp. Let's take a look back. Just lots of flashes expended to finally get that gold card connected. But again, we are just looking at a team that's so far behind. It wasn't strong. But
it went
even
onto the Vayne.
I know.
It didn't even go onto the Camille.
Exactly. If you'd used it on the Camille, maybe. But realistically, I still think that Trovo Nova win this team fight regardless. I think even if you find that combo, you were still out of position. Your Camille was already dead at this point, realistically. It would have been a nice knock-up that they might have been able to convert. But overall, I think Trovo Nova very comfortably winning these team fights now.
It's like we spoke about earlier on in terms of the priority here as well. Shut down the supply line of the Olaf onto the Vayne and then focus on getting the Vayne out of the game, and they've done it expertly. You can't imagine the Galio's going to be the one to step up and be the big carry for them. The Camille, as you saw in that last fight, sure, she can ult someone, but can't then get enough consistent damage down without being CC'd to high heaven. Here we go, though. They're going in on the back of that one. The Gragas ult coming out to do a little bit of disruption work, but it's a killing spree for him as it comes through. The Camille almost going down, finally falling out to the Redburn. I believe they might catch themselves one or two more here, but with 3 dead on the Mortal Shot side, this should be a couple of towers at the very least, if not the entire game at Scoundrel.
Yeah, I mean, this is how Baron can absolutely catapult a game into your lead. I mean, they're going to try and push straight down into the Nexus here. Good taunt from the Galio to buy time, but I think this is going to be game 1 for Trovo Nova.
Looks like it's going to be as the minions come crashing in. The Nexus hits 0. That is a very commanding first game from Trovo Nova. Mortal Shot with some work to do in game number 2.
Yeah, and I'm trying to figure out where it could have gone better for Mortal Shot, but I think realistically, I'm going back to draft iffy. I just don't think the Vayne was the correct pickup here. I think if you're going to play a Lulu combo comp, I think Lulu Tristana or Lulu Jinx right now, or even Lulu Xayah are all safer options than the Vayne. I think Vayne is like a red side last pick, counter pick 80 carry. I don't think it's something you can draft early on. And obviously Trovo Nova had the clear options to deal with it.
Absolutely. From early game pressure and just kept on rolling from there. Mortal Shot needs to compose themselves, and we'll see if that's what they can get up to in game 2. But before that, a quick break and then over to our analysts.
A lot of happy Trovo Nova fans in the chat, and I know probably TJ's a little bit happy as well to see all of his old friends having such a great time. TJ, before we threw to the casters, you started yelling about Olaf, and I can confirm to everyone at home, he didn't stop yelling about Olaf. And I'm going to kick us off there, TJ, because I feel like you need to get this off your chest and really vent a little bit about this pick.
I'm not happy at all, Trid. I know Nova won. I know I should be happy. Yeah. But I'm a little upset that you drafted Olaf into a Lee Sin. And I'll explain why by starting with the Lee Sin. First of all, great job, Vex. You looked great. Wonderful. Second of all, you're playing Lee Sin, who's absolutely broken right now, especially during the early game. What Lee Sin does is, during the first 2 levels, Lee Sin is already a massive damage threat. Doesn't need the ultimate to do that. So unlike every other jungler in the game, Lee Sin can do a couple of jungle camps, get level 2, and instantly be in lanes killing people. So why would you draft Olaf, a character that does not have that utility, into not only a Lee Sin, but also a Kai'Sa? Because once you get to the mid-game, the Kai'Sa not only is hitting her power spike, but can also just walk away from the Olaf. I can't emphasize this enough. He has no engage, which means that your 2 biggest damage threats, first of all, a Lee Sin during the early game, and second of all, a Kai'Sa during the mid-game, are completely unengageable, completely untargetable for your jungler. which just felt like it spelled disaster because there was never any point in the game where either Vex was contested for his early clear, contested for his early power spike, or the Kai'Sa, Hydra, was properly contested in the mid game. We had multiple fights where Hydra was just left alone to free fire as much as they wanted because there was no way to get access. I'm going to take a deep breath now and be okay on the inside.
Calm down, calm down. Okay, Yuko, is TJ just old man yells at clouds, or is there something to back this up? Because what's happening in SEA right now? Is Olaf as bad as a pick as TJ's trying to make it out to be?
All right, so I am the TJ translator to the viewers out there.
We thank you for your service.
You're welcome, guys. But yeah, Olaf, he is sitting at a 20-30% win rate at SEA right now. That alone is a horrible stat to look at. It pains to see this champion, and I know that he can be a pretty good frontliner. You have that Lulu as well, Wild Growth. But the problem here is Wild Growth was mostly just used defensively, and like what TJ said, you just have Kai'Sa that can just walk away whenever there is an Olaf. Also, there were some weird engage here and there against that Galio. Earlier in the mid lane, he did try to go up against Kai'Sa, but he popped the Stacies right after that Justice Punch. But yeah, I also would like to highlight that this Twisted Fate, earlier on in the early game, the gold card would always connect, and that basically contributed to Trovo Nova having that 2k gold lead in just 2 minutes. How fast is that?
It's an early way to pick up a lead, and the early game didn't really get much better for them. TJ, we've got a clip on the old drawing board for you to take a look at. It's a tower dive for Trovo around about the 5-minute mark. I'm wondering if you can walk us through this one.
Yeah, so there's a couple parts to it. I talked earlier about the Olaf not having any utility for this team. Part of the reason for that is that you didn't have any other engage that worked with it during the early game, because the team that was being set up is a Vayne squad. You're relying on the fact that this Vayne is going to get powerful, which she will, but around the 10-minute mark. And I'd like to highlight something that Nova do to take advantage of this. I talked earlier about how powerful Lee Sin is in the early game, how you can gank lanes early, and how there's no real response either from the Vayne or from the Olaf. And here is the fundamental case of this, as it's a very easy turret dive. And then here is step 2. This is something that Nova do literally every single game. They will draft Poseidon Twisted Fate, and as soon as he has the ultimate, they will set up for a play like this. He will teleport down into the bottom lane, and he will be able to set up for this, these repeat ganks. And they didn't need it here. He was too late to the fight to get the kill because Vex was playing a Lee Sin, and so he could just get the kill by himself, frankly. But every time you're watching Nova play with a Twisted Fate on Poseidon, watch for those early level TPs. As soon as he hits 5, he's going to show up either in the bottom lane or the top lane, depending on where the emphasis was. They had a Kai'Sa, so that emphasis is going down bottom.
So if you didn't gather from what we spent most of this analyst section talking about, a lot of this is going to come down to the draft. So let's go ahead and pull up that pick man for the next game, see if any adaptations are come in. And TJ, I feel like you should maybe get a paper bag or something in case the Olaf gets locked in. Scream into that this time, okay?
I'm gonna be okay.
All right. Let's see what the bands are going to come in for. We got Mortal Shot on the blue side for this game. Obviously, if they lose this game, they're out of the tournament. They won't get a grand final spot. They can still come back into this one. They're going to start off with the Ahri ban, which I always question. But Yuko, you said that's a reasonable thing to expect in this series.
Yep, and well, again, early game, a very good control mage. Imagine if there is an Ahri in the earlier parts of the game. Imagine if the charm will be able to connect to maybe Gragas, even Kai'Sa, assuming that Ahri was able to snowball earlier on. Could have made small differences here and there. Could have, at the very least, pushed Trovo Nova back. And I'm really liking this Gragas ban from the side of MS, because Gragas, even though we didn't see much of those astounding highlight plays, the explosive cast can still pose as a threat, and they can just use that as a luxury whenever they want to jump away. And for Trovo Nova, still gonna ban out that Ziggs and that Garen.
I think one of the things you have to watch out for, though, is what's still on the table. We talked about Lee Sin Kai'Sa as that just dominant early game composition, and Mortal Shot step up to try and take it away. That's very important. The Vayne was part of what screwed them last game because they were relying on a late game composition to answer to Lee Sin Kai'Sa. At the very least, that Lee Sin Kai'Sa won't happen again this game, provided Mortal Shot don't manage to take it away.
Well, with Kai'Sa in their side, that leaves Camille open for Trovo Nova, and let's see, maybe they could pick up I was about to say a Baron laner, but hello, Fiora! We'll be seeing her for this game, and I'm really looking forward to will this be a split push Fiora, or will this be a Fiora that is going to be in charge of cleanup, which, as you can see, is a very huge threat in the map.
Yeah, so this is building already in a very opposite dichotomy again, but instead of early game, late game, this is teamfight versus split push. What Trovo Nova have built between Camille and Fiora is a lot of very good duelists, a lot of very good single target focus carries. What Mortal Shot are interested in doing, especially as they get Diana Lulu, is we're going to get in the 5v5 and we're going to be able to CC you. Whilst we're CCing you, this Kai'Sa is going to shred your team. Trovo Nova either need to turn around this composition quickly, add some teamfight focus to their composition, which the Galio kind of does, or they need to embrace the fact that they can be winning across the map at all times without needing to take teamfights during the early game.
You know what? I think they heard you. You mentioned about maybe throwing in champions that can survive that team fights. Yeah, Galio, you have Asaya as well. Taunt connecting onto the roots can be a huge problem here at the Dragon Lane, even in the skirmishes. Just wait for maybe... okay. I understand the logic behind Vi, but can I just say that if you dash in or if you assault and Batsuri in to literally anyone, you will probably have Galio at the back lines. You're probably gonna meet a hero's entrance right then and there.
Who are you targeting? Who does the Vi pick on to? I think that's my question. Because if Vi solo targets literally anyone on Trovo Nova, they have a bad time. Malphite fits with the composition a little bit more. I would have really liked a Jarvan for Mortal Shot in the jungle here. That Kettle would have added a lot to this combo-focused team composition. Vi feels a little bit out of place.
Okay, and Braum's going to be the last pick to round everything out. We're going to go ahead and throw our casters Desert and Scoundrel, and I wonder how deep Des's reservoir of insults will go.
You're going to have to find out as the day goes on, Trid. I got no more for you. Ed Sheeran is about as far as it starts. So I'll let that sit for this series. We'll think of a new one for the next one. But welcome back to the casting desk. We're into game nice and quick here. And Kieran, I love these two comps. If anything on either side screams, we want to go in, we want to fight whilst also being able to protect ourselves, this is it.
No, I completely agree. I think you have plenty of peel potential from Trovo Nova, so that when that engage comes through, there's plenty of ways to disengage, and then you can look for that re-engage following. I think obviously Xayah is the perfect AD carry into the comp that you're facing. Whereas you see from Mortal Shot, it's like a full all-in style comp. Like you have the dive potential with the Kai'Sa, the Diana, the Malphite, and I actually don't mind the Vi because that is a good way to following that the Xayah ultimate. I think there are jungle picks that may have worked better. Jarvan was a good shout from the analyst desk, but the Vi, if you're particularly concerned about one target, so let's say you're particularly concerned about the Fiora or you're particularly concerned about the Xayah, Vi does give you that guaranteed single target lockdown, which in its own right is particularly useful when you already have oodles of teamfight lockdown with the Malphite and the Diana.
I don't hate it, only because it guarantees that you're going to hit someone, right? Whereas a Jarvan, whatever, you're not locking them hard and fast, whereas at least with that ult button, assuming you're not going on to these Xayah, you are guaranteed to get someone knocked up. You chain that up with the Lulu ult, with the Malphite ult coming in, with the Diana flying in. Someone's going to get juggled for a long time. It's going to look a lot like a circus and someone's doing a fantastic juggling act, but that's what I think we expect to see come the mid-game.
What is GD doing, honestly?
GD?
With his pathing has been...
he's got support, the flash over from Grizzly Q. I think they wanted to try and follow up with something there. No ignite, of course, on the Braum here means no extra damage to be inflicted, but questionable. You look, he was going for a Meritor and didn't expect to get bashed over the head for it.
Okay, right. I'm just going to run you through what his jungle path was. Blue invaded. He knew that it happened early on. He went Krugs, red, towards his blue, turned around, went back through his red jungle to bottom side scuttle. My only thought is that he believed that Vex was going to go from invade blue to his own blue, red, and then red side scuttle. So then he changed his mind last minute to go for the bottom side scuttle play, which unfortunately he got caught out on because, you know, Trovo Nova were easily able to collapse. And GD just put himself unnecessarily behind. Like he was set up to go for that top side scuttle. He was walking towards it on spawn, and then he turned around, and I was like, what are you doing, man? Go for the top scuttle. But my only thought process is that he must have believed that Vex had gone blue to blue. And then Vex was then going to go for the bottom scuttle because they had priority mid lane and they had a bit of priority bot. That's the only thought process that I can have, the way that would have been a sensible decision. Otherwise, it just seemed a little in to me.
There's a nice little thing to talk about here as well, beside picking up the Galio. For the side of Mortal Shot, they've played Galio in the vast majority of their games. In fact, looking back over their last 4 prior to this series, they had Galio picked in 3 of them, flexing in between the support position. In fact, no, all 4. 2 of them as support, 2 of them as mid. It's a great flex pick for them. And I think it's a really cool thing they're taking it away from them, not the least because here, it's a great counter into the Diana. You get so much pressure onto her. Sure, come mid-game team fight, she might be highly impactful, but assuming you haven't fallen off, so is the Galio too.
I mean, the Galio also provides a huge shield to the person that he's targeting, and that's a magic damage shield that he gives over to them. So that's a great counter into a Diana dive on your backline. Even if Diana can find that engage, she still has to get through the Featherstorm from the Xayah, which keeps them safe. Obviously, Vex can use his Hextech Ultimatum to dodge out the damage from the Moonfall. Clamares can use his Riposte. There isn't many good targets for Diana to actually lock down this game. And then obviously Pose on the Galio just makes that even harder for them.
I think the timing of the ult is going to be absolutely pivotal. Waiting for the hard CC, the denial to come away from the side of Trovo Nova is where it's really going to shine. It's gone back and picked up the rower here, and now the fight starts to, well, not fight breaks out here, but it's starting to set up, I think, around this Drake, as you can see the vast majority of members across the map heading over towards it. Trovo Nova, very dominant around Drake historically in the last map. I'm wondering here if they can let them get away with it once more, because in comes the Lulu immediately, getting herself away there. That was a very quick flash away.
Yeah, flashed immediately, doesn't want to get caught out, knows that it is crucial that she is alive for a potential Drake fight. It doesn't really feel that Mortal Shot want to go for the contest here, although you are seeing them move around.
Say that. Here we go. They can go to the engage as well immediately into the backline there, focusing onto the Vibe, but it's going to be the Lulu going down first. In this case, the Xayah scatters to the wind. The Diana on the backside, wondering, well, when do I engage? How do I get involved? The answer is you don't hear. I'm likely going to back off, and I think maybe look towards the mid lane, because to me, trying to get back into this one, a terrible idea, lest he gets himself caught out as well.
Okay, right, it's Mountain Drake. It's maybe the worst Drake in the game in terms of kind of what it provides for your team.
Oh, dear.
Lovely little flash taunt here. They might be able to get the kill.
Yeah, has his ult coming out as well, and in comes the Malphite too. They will find one, able to flash away here, and should be able to escape. But now that Malphite is just a massive beating stick for the Fiora. Not enough to burn through the thick hide that he's got there, the armor that he's stacked up. So hey, it actually worked out okay for Mortal Shot.
Yeah, it felt a little aggressive. Honestly, I didn't really feel like they had the legs with the Galio. Might even be able to pick up the Xayah here as well. Mortal Shot bouncing back. They actually have a gold lead now. If they just hadn't fought that Drake and maybe focused on trying to cross-map it for a top lane tier 1, you know, Hell's talked about it at the start of the game. Don't really need to break this down. They just didn't have the damage. And then Galio with a really great flash engage. And as you said, a little too tanky at this stage in the game for Clamares to take down. But, you know, I wish there was more of a focus here from teams to kind of avoid unimportant Drakes. Like that Mountain Drake's not massively impactful. Would have been great to see some resources invested. You know how easily people like Diana can take towers. Like, it'd been great to see some resources invested in maybe going for a top lane tier 1 and cross-mapping for that Drake rather than attempting to fight it and not really having the team fight set up to do so.
Or just even forcing in the mid. They had the vision of that, but how starts careful around what's going on for the Herald. I think in this case, Trovo Nova should be able to take this one away really without any kind of contest, and I'd look toward the bottom lane. Why not? In case you're wondering if the grass is still green, can confirm it is. Here we go, though, with Mortal Shot starting to gather around. They can see the health dipping low on this one. Question is, will they try and contest? No, they've been scared away by the Fiora by the looks of it. They can't quite find the engage they need. In goes the Diana. The Malphite on top, double knockup, stacking up off the back of it. Camille isolating onto the Malphite. Not normally the target that you'd want. The Galio coming in for the assist. And Trovo Nova, you can see this comp coming to life here. They've got so much cover for each other that no matter what Mortal Shot have tried, they're still walking away the loser.
Yeah, it felt so disjointed from Mortal Shot as well. I love. Oh my goodness gracious. I love the way that Trovo Nova actually played that fight out. I mean, they were able to essentially wage a war on many fronts. As you correctly pointed out, like Clamares was creating a huge distraction on one side. You obviously had the duo of Grizzly Q and Hydra on the other side, making it difficult to know where to facilitate or rather to focus your resources as Mortal Shot. And Mortal Shot's ideal composition or ideal team fight is, let's take a look here, right? As you correctly said, Clamare proving himself a nuisance on one side. You had Grizzly Q, Hydro, and also Pose on the other side being a massive, massive issue for half of the Mortal Shot squad. And then obviously Clamare and Vex being an issue on the other side. When you're not grouped up as a 5, when you're making that play and splitting the team fight into many areas, that's going to play in favor of Trovo Nova. When you have the full-on 5, the grouped up 5v5 team fights, that is where Mortal Shot's going to come alive. That was just good play from Trovo Nova to make it difficult to focus down any one specific area of the team fight.
I mean, you had the Diana with the ult in the middle of them all, but you also had the Kai'Sa off to the side, freely plugging away into those tanks, and that's the key word there, the tanks. Really not got the items at the moment to be able to burn through those, but give it another 5-10 minutes or so, and that could be a fight that gets lost because the Kai'Sa is freely hitting onto the members that she chooses on the enemy side. So we'll keep a close eye out for that one. With the objectives off the map, though, you see a little bit more composure here now. Pushes coming into any of the side waves. About a minute or so's time, we will have that Drake back online, and with it being the Infernal, this is where you should see, Ocean, this is where you should see a bit of a scrap starting to come through. There's the recalls coming out. The buys will come in, and straight away it's going to be a beeline over to that Drake.
Yeah, the Ocean Drake's an interesting one because it only gives you Omnivamp, and it gives you a limited amount of Omnivamp, which can...
people 8%, can, I think.
Yeah, people can debate its usefulness, I think, realistically. I think I think he just dies here. Oh, nice splash here. I love that. He waited for the vitals that were furthest away from him to be procced. Sorry, closest to him to be procced, and then he flashed as she went for the lunge on the second one to make sure that those vitals that are further away couldn't get procced. It was just, nice little thing that you could do in a micro way to kind of deal with a Fiora who's thrown her grand challenge down onto you. I think what you'll see here is that Trovo Nova is going to take this for free. I don't believe that Mortal Shot wanted to give up their lives or give up the game for a simple Ocean Drake, and it looks like with their...
Dive?
Yeah, Vime, they have to back off anyway. I think just based on their body language and based on their setup around the map, they don't look particularly confident in going for the fight. Although, as you say this, they are maybe going for the 5v5.
Oh, in goes to Diana as well, trying to land a big hit, but the thing is she's too far ahead. The TP hadn't even finished. Out comes the Zhonya's, out comes the Galio straight on top, and what more can they do? They're trying to find onto the Kai'Sa. She's still really high HP here. The Malphite finally dropping down. There are so many low health members here at Scoundrel. They catch a couple of these and they could march through a tower or two. They'll find the Vi. The Kai'Sa finally taking her first few points of damage in this fight. I spoke about it earlier on. She's being given all the freedom to plug away onto these frontline members, but doesn't yet have the damage to burn through them.
It's still not quite coordinated though from Mortal Shot. One person going in after another, and you can see the great setup with Diana. It would have been better if the Malphite was there straight away to capitalize on the Moonfall, but he wasn't. Take a look again, right? This was actually a really good engage by Diana, but there was no follow-up. You obviously saw Kai'Sa jump straight into the middle of the Blade Caller, which got her rooted up instantaneously, and then she's immediately put on the back foot in this team fight. But imagine if you had the Malphite ready to go with that unstoppable force, straight off the back of the Moonfall. This might have been a different team fight altogether. And you're also seeing the power of the Braum into the Kai'Sa. Those Icathian Rain missiles that are usually so deadly in teamfight situations, they mostly get blocked off and actually can limit Kai'Sa's power pretty significantly in the mid-game.
It was one of those where they'd already committed to TP, so you didn't want a style to back out of that and say, we're not going to commit to this fight. I'm not going in for the ult. You kind of have to force it at that point, but they had two members still caught behind the big block wall. They had to walk around it and path around it. An extra 5 seconds had passed by the time they joined the fight, and by then Trovo Nova had already grouped up and got themselves the advantage. But look at this massive press currently coming in through the blue jungle. Vex going straight in onto GD. Here's the Vi being isolated down and popped off. This is the problem when you're not grouped together. It is so easy for this Trovo Nova team to burn through members. Now, it's the Braum being slightly brought down, but not enough that he'll drop. Fit heal for Mortal Shot again. It's one of these games that is slowly starting to slip away from them because Trovo Nova, they're playing this whole grouping game a hell of a lot better.
Yeah, and they're rotating around the map. They've got much better vision control of the enemy jungle. They can make these more aggressive plays into the tower dives. This is a little risky. I'd say versus the Diana, you've got to have big cojones to go for the Baron, and they look like they know that, and they're going to peel off immediately into the team fight.
Just no concern at all here. The Zhonya's was the first thing that was burnt. Everything else should be an easy cakewalk for them as they'll find and use the Baron as bait, if nothing else, to walk through 2, if not 3 members confirmed to be the 3. This is just being used almost as like Hansel and Gretel here, like come and have the sweet treats, come for the Baron, and not letting them actually get it, because as soon as they get nearby, those jaws clamp shut, they find 2 or 3 kills, and they get the Baron off the back of it. Mortal Shot just can't keep up with the pace of the game.
Do you know what? I much prefer that, though. I hate it when teams try and coin flip Baron. Yeah, I mean, she's just dead, right? I hate it when teams try and coin flip Baron. Like, that's the worst thing that you can do. It's like, oh, guys, burst it. Ah, we lost the smite fight. And you know, honestly, I'm going to give you everyone, if you type bad jungler in solo queue after they lose a 50-50 coin flip smite, you should take yourself to timeout corner because it's not the jungler's fault. 50-50
I hope you step on Lego.
50-50 smites shouldn't happen in the first place. And again, it was brilliant bait, as you said. It is risky to go into a Baron fight versus a Diana with her Moonfall available, and they knew that. They were immediately able to peel off. And one of the real benefits of the Trovo Nova composition with, you know, this Diana Camille, sorry, not Diana, Fiora Camille combo, their single target burst and pick off is very strong. And so they've, you know, as soon as they just drop that Hextech ultimatum on someone, this is the combo though.
That's the big one, the counter engage coming out. The Galio straight into the back line, though. They will find something for this. Okay, that could be the point where Trovo Nova start pressing towards the end here. They've still got the Baron. They've got all 5 members left alive, and you were right. For a second, it looked like Mortal Strike had something coming, but the Braum counter engage was the setup for everything else they needed.
Also 12k gold difference. I think at the end of the day, if that had happened on even gold, if that had been the way they tried to execute these team fights before, we might have been looking at a different game. That was what that team fight was supposed to do. I love the addition of Braum though. If Braum can get his shield up at the back of the engage, you effectively shut down the main source of consistent damage in this team fight, which is that Kai'Sa. And as you said, you correctly mentioned, they are knocking on the base now. Those Baron buff minions, they're so difficult to deal with. Honestly, I think Baron is a little overpowered in this game, but we'll talk about that another time. And it just allows them to very swiftly push down the remaining towers.
They can't even afford to chase onto Grizzly Q and the Fiora here, knowing that there are 3 members also knocking on their door on the other side of the map. Playing knockdoor, running the front door to the back door here, it feels like. And even in this number disadvantage, they're still walking away with it. The Malphite should finally be able to bring down Hydro. He'll fall off, and now it should be him getting picked off. So yes, they've managed to find the 1 kill, but it's traded back immediately onto the other side. All the effort from Mortal Strike for very little return.
I mean, it was a 1-for-1, and they lost 2 inhibitor towers. You take that trade every day of the week as Trovo Nova. You have got complete pressure and absolute priority in the Baron lane and the mid lane right now. And Kamara's, he's kind of going for it, right?
I say not so much running it down, but getting a little bit over aggressive there. Not really too much to gain for it, knowing the support would come through from the rest of Mortal Strike. But does the job of forcing them back to base here to go and deal with the waves, which should mean this Infernal Drake is absolutely free.
And I don't even really think that Mortal Strike have that kind of like get out of jail free card of scaling in their back pocket. Yes, the Kai'Sa clearly scales well into the late game. However, I think so do a lot of picks on the side of Trovo Nova. Take a look here again. That is why Vi is a little awkward into a Xayah. She can just use her Featherstorm to stop the Assault and Battery from even connecting. But either way, these are desperation picks, given that you've just lost half your base. At this point, you are like desperately clinging on to any kind of chance that you can get. And all that Trovo Nova need to do now is wait for that priority to push through the top, to push through the mid lane, and then just slowly work their way towards that bot lane inhibitor tower. Or, you know, if they're even that scared of doing that, they can literally just go for Baron. And I reckon they'll be relatively uncontested.
I mean, they really want this final tower. I agree. If they want to go for it, they can. And that's absolutely what they want to do. Galio coming in over the top after Vex's engage has landed. This tower should be melting, but they're straight into the back here. You can just see the damage being dished out to the more squishy members on the side of Mortal Strike. They will fall. They will melt. Trovo Nova have all but locked themselves in a spot in that grand final tomorrow against the Unicorns of Love. It's going to be a rematch, and one they so sorely want after an excellent series against Mortal Strike. I cannot wait to see how that one plays out.
Yeah, I think it was the expected victors. I did say right at the start of the series with you, Des, I really do expect Trovo Nova to come into his favorites, and I think they quite clearly showed why. No disrespect to Mortal Shot. I think there was just a bit of a class difference in these two teams. Now, Trovo Nova have got to recollect themselves. They probably came into Group B believing themselves the favorites in this entire bracket, and they've got to reface Unicorns of Love as that final boss at the end of this group.
Both teams faced off against UOL. One walked away showing they really had to go now to take them on in the grand final. Can't wait to see that series breakdown tomorrow. But for now, let's go to a break. And when we come back, our analysts will break down this series for you. See you in a few.